The characters were characters that I cared about. The arc of the story was something that was sticking in my head, and the conceptions about PTSD or depression or things relating to reintegration problems or difficulties dealing with trauma after the fact. Part of who I've always been is looking at things like a writer, and I guess I just felt like I had to tell this story. So I turned it into a book. My name is Matthew Hefty. I was always really insecure about, I'm writing about this character who grew up in the same area where I grew up and did some of the same things growing up that I did, and joined the military with some of the same impulses that I did, and didn't want everybody to say, oh, this is like thinly veiled autobiography, because it's not. Levi is a character who appears totally fine. When he's interacting with others, he knows how to say the right things and do the right things so that everybody thinks, okay, everything's fine. And when people question him on that or press him on that, he's had enough military briefings that he knows what to say to kind of like ward off people pressing him about any sort of reintegration issues he might be having. And it doesn't claim to say that that is the experience for everybody, because all of us veterans have varying and extremely disparate experiences, and even if we all had the same experiences, would have different reactions to those experiences. So I wanted to kind of address that issue as well, that it's all very messy and kind of in the middle, because we can have damaged heroes, we can have anti-heroes who do heroic things, and we can have heroes who do despicable things, people you may want to be friends with, or people you certainly wouldn't want to be friends with. Every reading I've done, people have asked insightful questions and have been genuinely curious about how do we take care of vets better? How do we better address some of the problems that Levi and Nick are dealing with? And I don't have all the answers to those questions, but it is very rewarding to be able to have those discussions and at least have that dialogue with people, because in a democratic republic society like the one in which we live, we're all responsible when our nation goes to war. We're all responsible for taking care of people when we bring people back from war. And in a global world, we're all responsible for the damage that we cause to other human beings on this planet who may have had nothing to do with our conflict. When I initially went to the recruiter, I said, well, what's this EOD thing? I had no idea what it was. They said, that's explosive ordnance disposal. They don't really do a whole lot. Pretty much they just wear cool sunglasses and hang out with the Secret Service, which is partially true. And at the time there was no Iraq and Afghanistan, no roadside bombs. So I was like, well, that does sound pretty cool. So I signed up for that. And in addition to taking apart the explosives that were found, we had to go out and do post-blast investigations for things that had already gone off. When improvised explosive devices do go off, they often caused a lot of carnage, a lot of mayhem. And so picking through the body parts and cleaning up the messes that came from American service members and Iraqi civilians getting basically attacked and killed by explosives was a common and frequent thing. It was disillusioning. I left the military and moved straight here to Wisconsin and entered law school. I knew that I wanted to do criminal defense. I think criminal defense attorneys serve a very important function in society, in that our system of justice does not work unless everyone's afforded zealous advocacy. I think it's important that if veterans get caught up in the criminal justice system, that they have advocates who understand their unique issues so that those things are taken into account, because even in matters of guilt and innocence, and when we're deciding what punishments are appropriate, context is important. Really what I have my sights set on is starting a nonprofit that provides pro bono legal assistance to veterans on death row. They're overrepresented on death row compared to how veterans are represented in the general population. For various reasons, I think the death penalty is inappropriate, but I think it's especially perverse when the government trains someone to kill, let's say, sends them over to combat. That person experiences deep trauma, comes back and has problems with reintegration, psychological problems, and does something that may be admittedly horrible, but instead of taking into account the context, even though the government bears some culpability for that, the government now wants to execute that person. And that seems especially perverse to me. And so I see a need, and it's something that I'm passionate about. And just like when I was working with explosives and the stakes were life and death, the same is true when you're working for a client on death row. And so a lot of the things that I missed about the military in terms of the high stakes, the tight-knit community that was focused on one very important goal, I find those same things present in the Capitol Defense community. So I find it personally rewarding as well as a valuable thing to do in service of others.